Hello everybody. Welcome back to another video. Currently I'm in Florida right now in Cape Coral. And I did promise that I would not make videos. Well, I didn't really promise it, but I just told you guys that I wouldn't be making any videos anytime soon for the next like 7 to 8 days. But I look at the Weather Prediction Center because I do so every day basically. And we have a pretty serious, potentially urgent and, an emergency situation going on. Uh, there are four moderate risks of flash flooding, uh, to be very concerned about. So, uh, I'm going to be going over those today. Very serious, very urgent scenario going on. You have a frontal pattern, and it's essentially just going to stay stalled over the southern United States, basically. Yet see, you can see the front draping from Idaho all the way down into the Rockies and then into the deep south, and then it's just staying there. And then it goes off the East Coast and then bounces back into the Northeast and New England, and then goes into Canada, and then just does whatever. And you see, it's essentially just going to stay there. Well, it kind of didn't, but there's more conducive risks for flash flooding. It's gonna stay there for like day one and day two, and then something's gonna spawn on day three, and it's just gonna be terrible. I'm gonna be right back. Sorry about that. I'm back, so I just woke up. I just woke up, so I need to have time to blow my nose and clear my throat and all that stuff. So just hear me coughing or something. It's just not necessarily my fault. Anyway, so this is the day one outlook. We have a moderate risk for a big portion of South Texas, from Brownsville to Corpus Christi to Houston. Uh, and then we also have another moderate risk that's segregated from the original moderate risk. I shouldn't say original, but the bigger moderate risk. And it's in Louisiana to Mississippi, and it's affecting Jackson, Mississippi, I believe. That's where Jackson lies in the moderate. Then we have a slight risk extending from the Mexico border all the way up into Alabama, and then a marginal risk from the Mexico border all the way to East Florida. I am in West Florida, so at least for right now, I don't have to worry about this. But we also have a random marginal risk up in Maine, but it's not as important as what we're dealing with in the deep south. So, there are moderate risks of excessive rainfall for much of the Texas Gulf Coast and South Texas, as well as for a portion of west central Mississippi, Texas Gulf Coast to South Texas, or Texas Gulf Coast and South Texas. A very impressive setup for flash flooding will begin to unfold along the Gulf Coast of Texas today and will continue into future days. The impressive ingredient is the sheer amount of moisture that will be advecting north into South Texas and the Gulf Coast over the next few days in advance of a potent upper-level low, some of the remnants of former East Pacific Tropical Storm Christina. Wow. So, oh Jesus. Yeah, I'm just gonna crop that right there. And then precipitable waters advecting into Precipitable waters advecting into deep South Texas are likely to broach close to record territory today as they climb to as high as 2.75 inches. Wow. This is a function of well above normal sea surface temperatures in the Gulf, adding low-level moisture and pre-existing upper-level moisture from Christina. The combination of these could fully saturate the atmosphere up to the tropopause with melting layers as high as 17,000 feet. This will make any storms that develop in this environment having an almost unnatural ability to produce heavy rain. As the aforementioned upper-level disturbance approaches and Lee cyclogenesis begins east of the Mexico Mountains tonight, expect multiple rounds of thunderstorms across deep South Texas to impact the area. A westward moving band may start off around peak heating this afternoon, and then as the disturbance approaches tonight, a nearly stationary or slowly eastward moving band is expected to develop overnight tonight, which will persist for much of the night as competing forcings create an area of low-level convergence over deep South Texas. There is uncertainty as to where this convergence sets up, but it appears it's most likely closer to the Rio Grande Valley on the western side of deep South Texas. Given the incredible moisture available from these storms, localized cells could produce rainfall rates as high as 5 inches per hour, with 3-inch per hour rates common. I've never seen that in my life before. Despite dry soils going in, these incredible rain rates will easily overwhelm the areas experiencing them, resulting in widespread, locally catastrophic flash flooding, especially in any towns or cities that experience an extended duration of rainfall rates of that magnitude. That is probably the worst wording I've ever heard. Jesus Christ. Hold on. All right, I'm back, everybody. So, further north, the north to south oriented bands over deep South Texas will impact a strong but slow moving cold front drifting southeastward towards the Texas Gulf Coast. This will funnel the prodigious moisture northeastward, paralleling the coast. The storms will follow, resulting in training. As in deep South Texas, despite slightly, and I mean only slightly lower precipitable water values, rainfall rates to 3 inches per hour will be common, with localized rates to 5 inches per hour here as well. 5 inches per hour, let that sink in. No pun intended. Flash flood guidance is significantly lowered from Corpus Christi northeast to Houston as compared with further south down the coast. Thus, these prodigious rainfall rates will have no trouble exceeding flash flood guidances. Frictional convergence of the onshore flow and the front will make for nearly stationary bands of thunderstorms along much of the middle Texas coast. Thus, expect storm total rainfall amounts today easily exceeding 3 inches, but localized amounts will be much higher, perhaps exceeding or approaching, 8 inches, as noted by the high resolution ensemble forecast probabilities. With some uncertainty as to how prolific the storm total rainfall amounts will be, the moderate risk may need to continue to be upgraded in the hardest hit areas through the day, especially in may need to continue to be upgraded in the hardest hit areas of the day, especially if those include urban areas from Brownsville to. I feel like this is mentioning a high risk of flash flooding, which I haven't seen in like in months. I haven't seen a high risk of flash flooding in a very long time. So there is a chance that we do get a high risk. Damn. West central Mississippi. The same incredible moisture plume as over Texas is already in place across all of Louisiana and southern Mississippi this morning. The same front as in Texas will be even stronger to the east in Louisiana and Mississippi. Thus, with a southwesterly low-level jet flow into this front, expect numerous thunderstorms to develop across northern Louisiana, and west central Mississippi by midday today. The storms will run into a wall that is the cold front, forcing them to turn eastward, resulting in a well-defined line of storms along the frontal interface. It appears this is most likely to occur along the I-20 corridor. The heaviest rain will occur from midday through sunset, after which there may be a break before more scattered convection redevelops in the early morning hours of Tuesday. Multiple inch per hour rates are likely with these storms as well due to the deep moisture with precipitable waters at record territory between 2.25 and 2.5 inches. Portions of western Mississippi have been recently hard hit with heavy rains, resulting in wet soils, and the Jackson area, due to urban concerns, is also vulnerable to flash flooding due to heavy rainfall. In coordination with the Jackson, Mississippi Forecast Office, a moderate risk upgrade has been introduced. While soils are less supportive of flooding further west into northern Louisiana, persistent multiple inch an hour rates along the Interstate 20 corridor could result in an expansion of the moderate risk with future updates. Bro, that's just day one. We have 3 more days of the moderate risk to go. Here's day 2. Moderate risk remains from Brownsville to Corpus Christi to Houston, and even protruding into southwestern Louisiana. And we still basically have the same moderate risk for Jackson, Mississippi. It hasn't really changed. Day 1, day 2, day 1, day 2. It hasn't really changed. It hasn't changed. So this is for tomorrow. Um, there are moderate risks of excessive rainfall for the entire Texas Gulf Coast, as well as for west central Mississippi. God damn. Texas Gulf Coast. A plume of incredibly deep tropical moisture over the entire Texas Gulf Coast will be in place at the start of the period Tuesday morning. Ongoing Lee cyclogenesis in advance of a strong upper-level disturbance will support continuous numerous showers and thunderstorms in the onshore flow up the western coast of the Gulf and into the Texas Gulf Coast. This disturbance will further increase the amount of moisture available for the storms as precipitable waters rise to record territory in some areas, possibly exceeding 2.75 inches. Any and all thunderstorms that continue to develop ahead of the low will be capable of multiple inch per hour rainfall rates despite the reduced instability in the early morning. When added to Monday's rains, flash flooding is likely to continue all along the Texas Gulf Coast until the low itself, which will track northeastward roughly parallel to the coast, passes a given longitude, switching the wind direction from onshore southward to offshore northwestward. Since the low will be barely moving, a steady onshore flow across the middle and upper Texas Gulf coasts will continue to favor training thunderstorms impacting coastal areas, with the Houston metropolitan area remaining particularly vulnerable. Meanwhile, for the lower Texas coast, once the low moves offshore, the northwesterly flow will dramatically decrease storm coverage and intensity, but it won't completely shut it off due to the deep moisture still in place even behind the low, with the front lagging behind along the Rio Grande. Damn, there's considerable uncertainty as to the northern and western extent of the rainfall threat on Tuesday. The cold front bringing much drier air will continue its progress south and east across South Texas, so the threat will end from west to east during the day. Meanwhile, extensive cloud cover should limit instability well away from the coast. Thus, these storms will have a progressively narrowing portion of the Texas Gulf Coast that they will be able to impact. Regardless, heavy rain will continue to impact the lower Texas coast from the day 1 period into Tuesday morning, and the heavy rains will continue further up the coast throughout the period. This does support a continuation of the moderate risk into the southwest corner of Louisiana and west central Mississippi again. Heavy rains across western Mississippi are likely to redevelop in the same area along the Interstate 20 corridor during the peak heating Tuesday afternoon, and perhaps in some areas never completely stopping Tuesday morning from any overnight rainfall. The front driving the heaviest rainfall with the strongest storms will be completely stationary over Mississippi, whereas in Louisiana and points west it will continue painfully slow south and eastward progress. Thus, when storms re-fire Tuesday afternoon, they will be over many of the same hard-hit areas of central Mississippi as on Monday. Further east on Monday, the storms will align east-southeastward from western Mississippi to northern Florida. By Tuesday, however, northward progress of the front as a warm front will allow the heaviest rains to impact further north into Alabama and Georgia. Despite a lack of rain on Monday, the still wet soils across central Alabama towards Birmingham and Montgomery may require an eastward extension of the moderate risk area into central Alabama. Regardless, it does appear western Mississippi will still be the area that gets the most rainfall, especially over the combined 2-day period. Rains in west central Mississippi should diminish with loss of daytime heating Tuesday night, with lingering thunderstorms pressing southeastward towards southern Alabama and the Floridian Panhandle Tuesday night. Yeah, that is not good. But here we are. We're moving on to day 3. So we actually have two different systems. We still have the system that's producing the moderate risk from Houston, the Houston metro into Southwest Louisiana. But we also have a different system. We have a different system in the Midwest and the Great Lakes, from south of the Kansas City metro, the Springfield, Joplin area in Missouri, all the way up through Iowa, Wisconsin, Lower Michigan, Ohio, northern Kentucky, like the Louisville area, uh, Indiana, and Illinois. Uh, so many metros are in this slight risk and may actually have to be upgraded to a moderate risk. Potentially Chicago, Milwaukee, Green Bay, Detroit, Grand Rapids, Indianapolis, Cleveland, I think, is just in the cross of it. Uh, Toledo, Columbus, Dayton, Cincinnati. I said Indianapolis already. Springfield, Missouri, potentially. Springfield, Illinois as well. Bloomington, Illinois. Peoria, Illinois. The Quad Cities. Madison, Wisconsin. So you got a ton of metro. St. Louis, I can't forget that. So you have a ton of metropolitan areas inside of the slight risk. Uh, so with the risks of metropolitan areas that may need to be upgraded to a moderate risk, but to be honest, who really knows? Who really knows? I mean, the Weather Prediction Center knows, but anything is possible because there is uncertainty at play. So let's do this. There's a moderate risk of excessive rainfall for the upper Texas Gulf Coast into southwest Louisiana. Upper Texas Gulf Coast into southwest Louisiana. A potent upper-level disturbance, which does include some of the upper-level remnants of former East Pacific tropical storm Christina, will interact with an incredibly deep moisture plume over the western Gulf to continue a multiple-day heavy rainfall event over a small portion of the upper Texas Gulf Coast on Wednesday. The disturbance itself will make better forward progress during the period, moving from off South Padre Island at the start of the period into western Louisiana by Thursday morning. Immediately in advance of the center of this low, heavy rainfall will continue into the upper Texas coast and the Houston metro from the day 2 period. The axis of heaviest rain through the day is likely to be directed east of Houston along the Texas-Louisiana border near Beaumont. Thus, this area is likely to see the worst impacts from flash flooding overall throughout the day. The strongest storms will become increasingly tied to the movement of the surface low and attendant upper level shortwave, as the front that plagued much of Texas will follow behind the low, clearing much of the rest of the state from heavy rains for a brief time. Across the south, the front that was stalled from central Mississippi through Georgia the past few days will dissipate entirely in advance of the next strong cold front tracking across the Midwest. There does remain considerable uncertainty as to how fast the low will track up the Texas Gulf towards the lower Mississippi Valley. A faster progression may require a northeastward expansion of the slates to cover more of central Louisiana, and if even a bit faster still, it would re-impact western Mississippi late Wednesday night, requiring a significant upgrade from the current blank extended rainfall outlook for that area. Thus, significant changes are probable with future updates. Since the upper Texas coast area will have been hit hard on 2 consecutive days uh, prior to Wednesday, the moderate risk continuation into Wednesday was needed due to likely ongoing heavy rainfall throughout the period. While there is better certainty into southwest Louisiana for the moderate risk level heavy rains, the Houston metro was still included in coordination with Houston due to uncertainty largely on Wednesday morning as to how far west the heavy rain shield will extend. Yeah, sorry. Midwest. A potent area of low pressure over the plains at the start of the period will progress east across the Midwest at a rather fast clip through the day on Wednesday. As the low moves into the mid-Mississippi Valley, it will increasingly tap into the large moisture plumes present across much of the southeast. The low will create its own moisture feed, allowing the moisture to rapidly advect into the Midwest ahead of the low. The area from northern Illinois into Indiana has also been hard hit by periodic rounds of heavy rain in recent days, allowing for moist soil and high river levels to remain. Light rainfall at times are expected in the area Tuesday afternoon and evening, but due to the lack of moisture, no significant flash flooding concerns are expected then. By day 3, Wednesday, however, the tap into the Gulf moisture will change all of that. Numerous showers and thunderstorms will develop along the cold front ahead of the low as precipitable waters rise well above 1.5 inches, reaching as high as 2 inches at times. This will support storms capable of 1 to 3 inches per hour rainfall rates Wednesday afternoon through the overnight period. The storms will be very fast moving, which will reduce the flooding threat, but the aforementioned moist soils, urban concerns, and increasing availability of deep moisture will all support the potential for widely scattered instances of flash flooding. Expect a warm front to move across the area around midday to early afternoon, then a strong cold front to move through late afternoon through the evening, which may consist of 1 or 2 lines of thunderstorms. These lines of storms in rapid succession could support training-like effects as far as flash flooding potential. See, I told you, given the very favorable hydrology for flash flooding, it's possible that targeted moderate risk upgrades may be needed for portions of the area, particularly northern Illinois into northern Indiana, where a higher and slight risk is in effect. Told you. I know my stuff. I know how the Weather Prediction Center works. But anyway, so this is day 4. Now, day 4 is Thursday. Thursday, there's severe weather expected for the Ohio Valley into the mid-Atlantic. There are many bits of uncertainty, so we can't say for sure what is going to happen, when, where. Well, we kind of know where, but that where can shift. But and all that stuff. So this is day 4, Thursday. We have a moderate risk from the eastern Houston metro kind of to Louisiana, most of it, to southwestern Mississippi, to portions of extreme southern Arkansas. Then we have a slight risk extending from the Texas Gulf Coast all the way up through Arkansas into the parts of the Ohio Valley and Mid-Atlantic, stopping near Pittsburgh, and then going all the way down into Mid-Atlantic, the Tennessee Valley, the deep south to southeast, and ending at the Louisiana Gulf. And then same thing for the marginal risk. The marginal risk goes from the Texas Gulf all the way up through the kind of Midwest Ohio Valley, and then stopping at State College, Pennsylvania, then going down into the Mid-Atlantic, the East Coast, the Southeast, and then ending at the Floridian Gulf Coast, Floridian Panhandle Gulf Coast. Then we also have a marginal risk up here in New England, from upstate New York to Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. And then we also have a day 5 risk, which is a continuation of the slight risk for uh, most of the Gulf Coast, from South Texas all the way to the Floridian Panhandle Gulf Coast, and then a slight risk extending from South Texas to East Texas to almost all of Louisiana to most of Mississippi, most of Alabama, uh, basically like half of Georgia, and then parts of the Floridian Panhandle, and then that marginal risk continues from the Gulf, and then into Central Texas, into Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Georgia, Florida, the Carolinas, Virginia, and yeah, that's it. So that's it for day 5. But this is day 4, and they're both kind of conglomerated together. So there's a moderate risk. There's a moderate, slight risk of excessive rainfall for portions of the lower Mississippi Valley and central Gulf Coast on day 4. I don't know why it's a moderate, slight risk because, okay, whatever. Attention is on the multi-day excessive rainfall threat in the Deep South, where an abundance of tropical moisture will engulf areas from southeast Texas to as far east as Georgia. There are notable timing differences across guidance on the placement of the heaviest rainfall. This will come down in large part to the development of the low-level disturbance in the western Gulf. Both its development and track will likely be troublesome for guidance to key in on for another 24 to 36 hours until a circulation is formed over South Texas. That said, the region in total will have witnessed multiple rounds of excessive rainfall, particularly East Texas, central and northern Louisiana, and into western Mississippi, in lead up to day 4. The 12Z European Center for Medium Range Weather Forecast, EFI, showed a notable overlap of greater than .7 signals from southwest Louisiana on eastward into central Mississippi, including at least a 2 contour on the shift of tails. In collaboration with several weather forecasting offices across or along, the central Gulf Coast and into the lower Mississippi Valley, a moderate risk was issued to account for the concerns of additional excessive rainfall over the areas that will likely be dealing with ongoing flash flooding in the days leading up to Thursday. It is worth noting that the same axis of anomalous moisture in the south will stream north into the Tennessee and Ohio valleys. These areas will have the benefit of strong synoptic scale forcing to produce widespread thunderstorms. A slight risk stretches as far north as southwest Pennsylvania to account for flash flooding in these more flash flood prone areas. Day 5 will see a weak 500 millibar trough axis over central Texas tapping into the lingering tropical moisture along the Gulf Coast. Lower pressures over the Rio Grande and persistent high pressure east of the Bahamas will maintain the seemingly endless moisture tap emanating out of the Bay of Campeche. Moisture out ahead of the upper trough will also collide with a frontal boundary that will extend across much of the south. The future of the upper-level feature that originated over South Texas early in the week may also still play a key role in excessive rainfall, especially from southern Louisiana on eastward into northern Georgia. Accounting for various ensemble guidances tonight, there is a sufficient signal for excessive rainfall in areas across the south that received copious amounts of rain for the first 4 days of the work week to be concerned for more scattered instances of flash flooding that could be locally significant. A slight risk was issued from the lower Rio Grande Valley to as far east as the Appalachians of northern Georgia. So that's it. That's it. This is a very urgent, deadly, and very dangerous situation for the Houston metropolitan area and the Texas Gulf Coast into southern and southwestern Louisiana and parts of western and southwestern Mississippi. If you live in any of these red regions or yellow regions today, tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. If you live in any of the red or yellow regions, especially if you live in or near Houston, or the Texas Gulf Coast or Southwest Louisiana and Southwest Mississippi, Please, for all that is holy, please, 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 please be prepared for many inches of flash flooding. Many. Houston will be the most impacted because it's under four moderate risks back to back to back to back. And I'm very concerned for Houston. Many people could unfortunately be killed here because it is such a large metropolitan area, and I would not be surprised if Houston had a high risk upgrade. So please know what to do if you're in a flash flood emergency because those are going to occur today, tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday. They're going to occur. They are going to occur. If you are under a flash flood emergency, get to higher ground immediately. Cancel all your plans. Go into the store. Just leave the store. Go home and get to higher ground immediately as flash flooding is occurring if you're under a flash flood emergency and will be significant, catastrophic, and deadly. And there are many hazards that come with flash flooding. You don't know what's in those floodwaters. You don't know. You can't assume, and you just don't know. And there could be people, there could be, I don't know, alligators. I'm not sure what the hell is going on. But there could be many objects, many pieces of debris that could unfortunately kill you if you're in the water. You could also drown, because some people don't know how to swim. It's unfortunate that some people don't know how to swim, but some people don't know how to swim. And if people get caught in that floodwater, if they don't know how to swim, they will drown. That's how many people die in flash flooding. They get swept under. And the current is so quick that even experienced swimmers can't escape. They can't. But regardless, if you can't swim, you're just dead. You just gotta accept your fate, unfortunately. Uh, don't mean to sound morbid, but it's kind of trying to instill some fear into you guys to show that this is a very urgent scenario. So please, if you're under any flash flooding risk, specifically the red or the yellow, and you're under a flash flood warning or a flash flood emergency, get to higher ground as soon as you can. Take your family with you and know what to do in case of an emergency because an emergency will occur today. It's just a matter of where. All right, so please do whatever you can. I'll give updates tomorrow and on other days when I can. Uh, uh, but no guarantees because I may be busy. So I'll try to do as best as I can, but no guarantees because I know this is an emergency situation. So, alrighty, get out of here, y'all. See y'all later.